Hi everyone, it's Shea. Welcome to or back to my channel. If you're new here, I am an American, but I am currently living and studying in Bologna, Italy. So in today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience at a language school here in Italy to learn Italian, because I get a lot of questions on Instagram about how school's going, what the structure is like, how many people are in my class, what kind of things am I learning. So I wanted to talk about some of those things in case you are also interested in studying abroad in the country of the language that you're learning, or if you're just curious how it's going for me. So I've been here for about 6 months, and in today's video, I want to talk about my overall experience, how my classes are structured, some of the things that we're learning, things that I like and don't like, and answering the question, should you go to a language school? So if you're curious and you are learning a language, or you're also curious about going to the country to study the language that you're learning, definitely be sure to follow me on Instagram, check out my website because I have lots of resources for you as well. And on my Instagram, I post about my daily life here in Bologna. So be sure to follow me on there, and always feel free to shoot me a message. I'm always happy to respond to people who ask me about my experience here and ask for help on moving to Italy or something like that. I'm here for you and I will be happy to answer any questions. First off, my school is every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. in the morning until 1 p.m. So it's basically just the morning, and then I have the rest of the afternoon off to do whatever I want. I really, really like this structure because I think it is a good amount of time to be studying every day, but then I still have time to do my own thing, whether that's working, whether that's making YouTube videos, or exploring. Sometimes I'll go to a nearby town because the trains here are really good. So it really gives me the perfect balance of studying, but also free time. If I'm not wrong, most of the schools that I looked at also have this structure, just like 4 hours, maybe 5. You also have the choice to do some private lessons or do some extra lessons as well. So that option is also there for you. And for my school, the first 2 hours are focused on grammar. So I will go a little bit more into the things that we're actually learning a little bit later, but it's a lot of learning grammar topics and then doing some worksheets and exercises, asking questions, going over basically just all grammar stuff. Then we have a coffee break, which is very common here in Italy. I think it's supposed to be just like 30 minutes, but it definitely ends up being like 45 minutes to an hour. It's still good because you go to a nearby cafe and you talk with your classmates and your teachers still in Italian. So you get conversation practice while enjoying like a coffee or something. And then we go back for the last hour. We focus more on speaking. So this could be done through playing games or reading a text and then discussing it. So it's definitely a little bit lighter than all the grammar stuff in the first 2 hours. And we just focus more on getting that speaking practice. And a lot of people ask me how big my classes are. So it really, really depends, because the way my school is structured is it's not like a semester system. It's not at a university. It's a small language school, so people can come and go as they want. So people might come for just like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month. There are only maybe like 3 or 4 people like me who have stayed for at least like 4 months. We're kind of like the originals. Like we're all pretty close now. So it is nice to have at least some long-term friends, because it can be pretty difficult when people are constantly coming and going. So because of that, I have had classes where 1 week there's maybe 4 or 5 of us. Like last week there were only 4 or 5. This week though, with the start of a new week, now we are back up to 10, I think. The most I ever had in my class was like 12, maybe 13. So it never gets too big, but I would say at that point, the 12, 13, 14 feels really big because it's hard for everyone to participate at that point. I personally prefer when there's like 4 people. It's a lot easier to talk and get your chance speaking, and yeah, it just feels, I like the environment of a smaller class. So it really depends week to week who's coming, who's going. And then also people ask me how I was placed. So for my school, they aren't super strict about like taking a placement test, which probably would be good if they did that. Basically, when you start off, they have different levels. So they put me into the like lower intermediate level when I first came, and you know, they just give you some time to see if this is a good class for you. I've had people who have started in my class and then maybe they realize it's a little too high of a level for me, and they can move down or up depending on how you feel. So I'd say the first week is really just seeing which class works best for you. And for a while I was in the same class and I felt like I progressed a lot. And then finally you kind of get to the point where you realize like maybe they're starting to repeat some things you've already learned a lot. So I did move up, as I mentioned, I think in one of my last videos. I moved up maybe like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Yeah, so now I'm actually in the most advanced class, but the most advanced still isn't like, I think we're just now kind of reaching some C1 topics. So the most advanced, like don't think I'm in like a C2 class or anything, but within our school, I am in the one that's most advanced. So also we do lots of worksheets and exercises within class. We don't have too much homework, which sometimes I actually like having homework because I don't know, I will come home and study some more stuff on my own anyways. So if you're worried about like homework and tests, we don't really have that. Some teachers will give you just a worksheet or something to work on and it never takes too long. And we definitely don't have any tests, which I like because it's not this stress to learn and like cram all this information in for this big exam. It's a lot more enjoyable to learn a language this way when you're not stressed about doing well on a test and you can just learn to enjoy learning the language. Okay, so now I want to shift into topics based on my personal experience at this school. I definitely have progressed a lot. I think a lot of it definitely has come from school, but there are also things that I mentioned in another video that are things that I'm doing outside of school to help as well. So I think it's obviously a mixture of living in Italy, but also school. I think I can attribute most of my progress to, obviously, because I'm in school for 4 hours Monday through Friday. I would hope that I'm making a lot of progress mainly from school. I also really enjoy it because I've met so many cool people, and even if they only stay for a week or two, usually it's fun to like meet all these people from all over the world, because actually there are a lot more people from other European countries, more so than Americans. So it's pretty cool to meet people from all over, and I've made some really good friends who were here for a while, and unfortunately maybe some of them have left now, but it has been nice to meet all these different people. But yeah, overall my experience has been really great. Like every day I look forward to going to school. I'm excited because the teachers are really great, and of course all of them have different teaching styles. Oh, something I didn't mention about the structure in the last section. We do switch teachers. I think I'll talk about this more a little bit later on when I say things that I like and don't like about the school, but we do switch teachers. I haven't had like the same teacher the whole time. I would say by now it's like we switch probably every month. Obviously some teachers have different teaching styles and maybe some I prefer over the other, but for the most part all the teachers really are so great, and they make the lessons really engaging, and they have good exercises that we do and worksheets. So overall, and like I said, I really like the routine of going to school every week. I'm always excited to go. So I would say overall my experience has been very positive. I would say there was a point around the summer where I was starting to get really tired, because now that I'm going to be here for a year, if you think about it, you have breaks when you're in school. You're not just studying every single day. And this is why like I finally took that week-long trip to Puglia, which was amazing. I love Puglia. And so things like that, also things like that, the fact that I can take vacations during school. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself because this is supposed to go on the stuff that I like and don't like about the school, but that was one thing I noticed that was a little tough. You know, if you're studying all the time without having a break or a vacation, it can get like very overwhelming. So now I want to jump into talking about some of the things that we have learned and the things that we're learning right now, because people are always very curious to hear about this. So I will also show some pictures of like worksheets and maybe my notes so you can see some of the things that we've talked about. Because like I've said in past videos, I don't like filming in class because I feel like that would be weird and other students would be uncomfortable. So I'll just talk about it and try to give as many examples as I can. The very first day I walked into school, we were working on the conditional tense, condizionale, and I had studied this a little bit, but the worksheet that we did was pretty hard at first, and I was doubting whether or not I was in the right class. And it was also very hard because going into school the first day and they teach completely in Italian was very overwhelming, you know, after like jet lag, and I just got to Italy, I think 3 or 4 days before. So it was rough, but I was able to adapt within that week. Things went well. But yes, the first thing that I remember doing was going over condizionale. Since then, we've definitely done a lot of review with some of the tenses, like the future tense, when you use imperfect versus past. I'm trying to say these words in English, but I don't know what passato prossimo, near past. The difference is between when you use imperfetto and when you use passato prossimo, because there are different times when you would use each of those. We also had a big section on the pronomi, so indiretti, diretti, and combined. I know I'm switching back and forth, but whatever. Combined, these would be pronouns. That's something that can be pretty difficult in Italian, especially for us English speakers. So there will still be times where we come back and actually review these things. Then, of course, we got to the point where we started learning the lovely, everyone's favorite, congiuntivo. And honestly, ever since then, we have been reviewing it pretty much every week here and there, doing exercises on it because it's very complicated. I'm still struggling. Like, obviously, some pieces are coming together and it's becoming a little more clear, but still, when I'm speaking to my friends in Italian, there will be times where I know I need to use congiuntivo, and I'm like, how does this work? But you know, it's a process. Things take time. We don't just like learn something one week and move on from it forever. There are definitely times where we come back and revisit a lot of things. It kind of depends on the class too, because the teacher will ask like, oh, what do you guys want to review? Is there anything that's not making sense? So it can be up to the class sometimes to decide what kind of things we want to look back at. We also spent a little bit of time on some like lesser used tenses. So for example, we were given this kind of like introduction with passato remoto, which is really a tense that's only used in literature, and also apparently people in the South will still use it. Sometimes, that's what I've been told. It's not something I will really be using while I'm speaking Italian, so it was more of just like a good to know because I started reading books in Italian and I've noticed it, but it's not something I like really need to dive deep on. Last week, for example, we talked about modi indefiniti, I think it's what they're called, so things like the gerunds, participles, and infinitives. Again, I'm thinking about these in Italian and I'm like, we just say them in Italian? I don't know. Also, there was a time we went over verbi pronominali, which don't really exist in English. So that section was also a little hard for me to kind of like wrap my brain around the meaning. But with time, and once I use them, and I've watched shows where Italians use them, I start to like, I'm getting a better understanding. So those are coming along well, I would say. A lot of times we will also, in the second part, read some text or read some things that maybe are a little bit harder so we can learn some vocabulary. And then we'll do exercises to make sure that we understood what we read. We'll discuss some things. We also will play so many different types of games. We'll play taboo in Italian, which is fun, but can be very difficult. We've also done games where we're like, one side of the class is for something and against something, so you'll do a discussion or like a debate like that. So things like that can be pretty fun and I think pretty effective for helping learn and getting speaking practice. And now, finally, I want to go over my likes and dislikes. Obviously, as I've said, I genuinely love the school, but there are also things that, after being here for 6 months, like, of course, maybe aren't my favorite. Let's start off positive with the likes. Like I said, teachers and staff, absolutely wonderful. Everyone's great. I think the hours every day, the 4 hours, is a perfect balance, as I said in the beginning. I really like the relaxed attitude of the school. I was really looking for that when I was looking for schools to go to because I knew I'm more of an independent person. Like I wanted to feel like I still had my own life and the ability to do what I wanted while I was here. Because some schools are a little bit more strict on things like attendance. But this school is like, okay, you paid for it. Like if you want to come to class, do that. If not, if you want to take time to travel or do other stuff, like that's also fine. Okay, sorry, I had to move because it was getting really bright and it still kind of is, whatever. Yes, as I was saying, a relaxed environment. They have like school trips and things that they organize after class. Again, if you want to join, you can, but there's no obligation, like you have to do everything with the school. Yeah, so it has also allowed me to travel a lot during the week. In the beginning, I hated missing class and I only traveled to places on the weekends. And then I saw like more people just taking a lot of time off. The only trip that I took off maybe like 4 days from school was when I went to Puglia like a few weeks ago, because that was like my big summer trip. But other than that, I usually would just take a long weekend, like just a Friday off or just a Monday. But I also figured usually I was always traveling around Italy, so I was still using Italian because I speak Italian when I travel. So it was still kind of like practice. It was real world practice. So I don't feel that bad about missing a few days of class if I'm still traveling around Italy and speaking Italian. More things that I liked, I'm really liking what I'm learning, the progress that I made. I think the content of the classes are usually very interesting. And like I said, we can tell our teachers if there's anything we want to work on or if there's something we encountered like out in the world that we didn't understand. They're always very nice and helpful. Just overall like a great environment and a great environment to learn. Okay, now let's focus on dislikes. Because I have to be honest, you know, sometimes there are things that aren't my favorite. Some weeks are a little disorganized, and this is because we are constantly having new people, like I mentioned. It can be hard to have a good structure when you keep having people come in every week who are at varying levels. Some weeks for me, even though we're in the advanced class, there are some people there who aren't like quite as advanced, but they wouldn't be in the lower class. So sometimes our level has been like brought down a little bit, and that can be frustrating when I've been here for so long and we've gone over a lot of this stuff, but I don't have anywhere to go up from here because we are the most advanced class. You see how this could be a problem? So that can be a little frustrating. And I don't know if it's fully because we don't necessarily do like placement tests or anything, but it can be a little frustrating. For me, it's not too bad because I'm like, well, I'm here for a long time, and if I have a 1 week that's kind of like, just reviewing stuff I already know, that's fine. I can always use a review. I feel bad for the people who are here only for like 2 weeks and they are more advanced, and for them it's like, I don't have that much time here and I'm already learning things I already know. Because people have asked me this. They're like, wait, if you aren't following the same class and people are always coming and going, like, don't you repeat things? Yes, it happens. With language learning, it really is kind of like, it's really not just like a straight increase. It's really not a straight increase. It's kind of like definitely up and down, up and down. Because like I said, with conjuntivo, it was like in the beginning I was not getting anything. But the more we revisit it and the more we come back to it, it's like up and up. Then of course, as I kind of hinted at, some of the teachers' teaching styles weren't necessarily my favorite. I did have some teachers where they weren't super great at explaining things. One in particular just like really rushed through things. And this was also when we first started learning conjuntivo, and I was like, why are we already skipping to exercises? Because I need to see like the charts of the conjugations and stuff like that. So obviously that's out of my control. For the most part, the teachers have all been great. The teacher I have right now, she's amazing. I love how organized and structured she is. Then of course, another thing that is out of my control, some students, how do I say this? There are just some people who will just really distract from the lesson, which can be kind of frustrating. There are some times where there are students who ask questions that aren't super related to the lesson, like maybe it's something like personal that they're interested in. For me, I feel like that's something you should ask just like outside of class. Or there have been some students who take up so much of the class time that I feel like at that point maybe just do like personal lessons after, or individual lessons after. I think it's frustrating when a student will just like take up so much of everyone else's class time. So I wish there was a little bit more organization when that kind of stuff happens. But yeah, of course I think people should ask questions. There are just certain times where it becomes like now the whole direction of the class has shifted into answering something unrelated. Another thing, like I just said, the no placement testing, I feel like sometimes messes with the level. Also, one other thing is sometimes I actually wish we had like more homework because for me personally, I want like the extra work. That sounds weird, but a lot of times I come home and I'm still studying and doing stuff on my own time anyways. So it would be kind of nice if we had some homework, not all the time, but I wouldn't mind. Okay, so finally I wanted to touch on the topic of, should you come to learn a language, should you study abroad? I personally think I have made tremendous progress here in Italy that I would not have made if I continued just studying at home alone. But that isn't to say that it would be impossible. I think for me, it was hard to kind of keep a lot of motivation when I wasn't actually here. And I personally knew I wanted to come here, so I kind of was like, I'll wait till I get to Italy. Studying was a little bit hard. Maybe if you're in the position where, you know, you probably won't get the chance to study in the country that of the language that you're learning, you know, maybe you have like a bit more motivation to study at home. But I think for me, it was a very, very good option. Obviously, not everyone has this opportunity, and I am very lucky and fortunate that I am able to come study here. So if that isn't an option for you, I don't want you to worry that like it will be impossible to learn the language. It just is very, very helpful. When every day I'm surrounded by Italian, I'm using it when I'm going to the store. I've met friends here who are native speakers, so obviously talking with them is super helpful because talking was the biggest thing that I was missing when I was living in Los Angeles. But as I've mentioned, there are so many ways you can talk with native speakers with italki and HelloTalk and Tandem, like all these apps and websites that help you connect with people. So again, it's not impossible. If you have the opportunity and the availability or the means to do it, I highly recommend it. If the only thing that's holding you back is fear, you should do it. I know there's a lot of other things that could prevent people from coming to the country that, that they want to study at. But even if you have the option for like 2 weeks or maybe even just 1 week, I think it's so valuable. If you don't plan on like making friends here, if you're only going to be here for a week and that's not a lot of time, just being able to experience the country, like trying the foods, seeing what the cities are like, seeing new places in that country, that alone is very valuable and could probably also help spark some motivation. If maybe it's been a little tough, like learning the language at home, if you want to set this goal of going to the country for a week. But for me, it has been very, very amazing experience. Obviously, I've decided to stay even longer than I initially planned, so you can probably guess that I've had a really great time here. And yeah, it's been so exciting to be able to now watch shows in Italian and be able to understand pretty much everything or have conversations with native speakers. Like I know some people who don't really speak English that well, we only speak Italian, and I'm still able to talk with them for hours. I still make a lot of mistakes. There are times where I can't fully express myself, but like I have made a lot of progress here, and it's very exciting, and I'm excited to see where I go from here. Those are my insights on studying a language abroad, what my school is like. If you have any more questions, because I probably missed some things, definitely comment them down below, or you can feel free to message me on Instagram. I also do have a lot of resources on my website. I have like a new language study planner and then also like a vocabulary tracker, and both of those you can just download right away and start using them. So if you're curious, go over to my store and see what I have available. I was also thinking of starting to do like one-on-one sessions, so if you want to practice English, let me know if you're interested, because I was thinking about doing that, but right now italki is not accepting any more English teachers. So I could just do it on my own, but let me know, because I'm not sure how many people would be interested. And it would just be for people who are like seriously trying to practice English, just like getting speaking practice, or if you have grammar questions, need help with language stuff, whatever. But yeah, that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.